All right, assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of low carb diets. You know, I've taken a very strong anti-keto, anti-low carb stance, but I never want to be one of these biased, dogmatic influencers online who always tell you that my way or the highway, my way is the only way, because there are multiple ways to get fit. Some are better than others, but it depends on the person. It's always situation dependent, situation specific, and it needs to be specific, customized to the individual. And there are some people and many circumstances and situations where low carb can be beneficial. So let's talk about it, right? I have a couple clients, but I have one brother currently in my client group right now who is actually on keto carnivore, which is literally, I don't want to say the opposite of what I usually teach, because, obviously I do, advocate for eating a lot of clean, lean meats, but for him, he's eating fatty meats and low carbs, and that is the opposite of what I recommend, which is, lean meats and higher carbs for 97% of people. But he's the one exception, and I've had a number of exceptions over the years. And it's really strange because sometimes I'll have clients lose their first, 14 to 20 pounds. There's a very specific numbers because there's been, I could only count them on one hand, the number of clients who this has been the case, where they'll lose anywhere from 14 at the lowest to 20 pounds at the most, and then hit a plateau. And then I have to switch them to low carb with higher fats. And that's what gets the ball rolling again for these particular clients. However, the majority of people can lose at least 20 pounds in one shot and never have to do anything other than my low fat, higher carb, high protein protocol that I recommend for most people. So I want to explain why this is, and I want to explain some more general benefits of low carb diets, especially when it comes to fasting, particularly suhoor, right, the meal before the fast, as well as particularly with people with really big appetites who need help controlling their appetite. Because there's two types of people with big appetites, right? There's people who have a big appetite all day long. From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they're super hungry, and that's why they overeat, and that's why they're obese. That type of person can do really well on low carb because low carb can help to control your appetite. And there's a variation of low carb called carb backloading, which is good for people who do find that they feel better when they have carbs in their system, but who do better with keeping those carbs later into the night. And so the way it works is that you don't have carbs with breakfast. Instead, you just have mostly protein and some healthy fats as well. And that prevents your blood sugar from rising, which is what happens when you eat carbs, which prevents your blood sugar from falling, which stimulates your appetite. Now, again, for people who have a small appetite and a slow metabolism, I always like to get carbs in the morning. Why? Because they already have a small appetite, so the appetite increase is pretty inconsequential. It's completely insignificant because even if their appetite goes up, they have a low appetite to begin with anyways. But getting those carbs in the morning can help to increase their energy levels, increase their activity levels, and how many calories they burn during the day, increase their workout performance. That's one of the greatest benefits of having carbs, which is why I recommend it for most people who are active, who work out, which is obviously part of our program. Is you got to work out, and I teach you how to work out, obviously properly and optimally, even if you're already advanced. Even if you're relatively beginner, I teach you how to train most optimally for your body type, and I make a custom program for you. And so in order to train properly, you need to have enough carbs in your system for most people. Again, there's those anomalies who, again, I could count them on one hand from the hundreds of clients who I've worked with who do well on low carbs 100% of the time, including the brother who's on keto carnivore right now. But subhanAllah, those carbs are usually beneficial in the morning. However, when somebody has a really big appetite all day long, doing that carb backloading strategy or low carb, but usually just carb backloading, no carbs at their breakfast time, makes a big difference, where not only is their appetite lower throughout the day because they did carb backloading, so they're less likely to overeat at lunch, but they have a lot of calories left over at dinner time, which is usually when they want to eat a nice, big, satisfying meal. Eating all those carbs helps them to get sleepy, and then from there, they can sleep very easily, but they're still in a calorie deficit because their total calories are less during the day because they have a structured meal plan and their appetite isn't as high, so it ends up working really well. And this works great during Ramadan, during Arafah, during Sunnah fasting, during any kind of fasting, because when you don't eat carbs at suhoor, you keep the carbs very minimal, right? So I usually the only carb I eat at suhoor is one date because it's Sunnah, and because that small insulin spike can help to increase your hydration without, significantly increasing your appetite or causing your energy levels to crash, like what would normally happen if you ate too many carbs at suhoor, you ate fast-acting carbs at suhoor. And I usually have the date at the end of my suhoor so that the insulin spike is slowed down by the healthy fats and healthy proteins. And for more information on what to eat for suhoor, check out my Ramadan mini course in the playlist on my channel. I got a free mini course to teach you exactly how to eat most optimally for Ramadan and any other kind of fasting for suhoor, iftar, workouts, mindset, maximizing your ibadah, everything. It's a very comprehensive course for Muslims with fitness, with a little bit of deen tied in as well, as I always do, alhamdulillah. But so that's the case where I'll use low carb. usually with somebody who has a big appetite, I'll do either carb backloading or in some cases low carb, but usually it's carb backloading because I don't find that an entirely low carb approach is most ideal, because again, most people, even if they don't do well on carbs at breakfast time, do better at least get some carbs throughout their day, whether it's, having the total intake high, having the total intake significant enough that they have carbs in their system for optimal energy, performance, and metabolism, or simply because, when you're on low carb, your cortisol can come up, which can make you have some trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. So eating those carbs at night helps you to fall asleep and stay asleep as well, which is why I like carb backloading for those people. But again, most people, it's weird because a lot of clients who come to me, yeah, we have some overeaters, but just by increasing their protein intake, that's enough to prevent them from overeating carbs and fats, to where even if they had a big appetite, we don't even need to do carb backloading. Or a lot of people come to me and they're undereaters. They're chronically undereating. They're not eating enough protein, but they're not eating enough of anything else either. And their metabolism and energy levels have slowed down to compensate and adjust. And as a result of that, they do really well on medium to high complex carbs, high protein, low fat, gets them in a deficit, boost their metabolism, boost their energy levels and activity levels. Plus, obviously we give them a specific number of steps to hit every day that's realistic for them. Program walking and other forms of activity into their schedule based on how busy they are, and programming workouts into their schedule based on what equipment they have and what their schedule is, and boom, they start seeing some significant metabolic benefits. They get into a calorie deficit, they get great results. MashaAllah, Allahumma barak. So again, most people, that's the approach to find well, but again, it depends on how fast is your metabolism, how big is your appetite, etc. And there's two more types of people I'm going to talk about, right? So another interesting thing is people with a slower metabolism tend to be able to get away with eating less carbs, versus people who have a faster metabolism tend to need to eat more carbs, which is actually ironic because even the people with a big appetite and a slow metabolism, even if we were to start them with the carb backloading protocol, which again is not always required, because some people, they don't have a big appetite in the morning, it's more so at night that they have a big appetite, and that's the next type of person I'm going to talk about. But and actually I'll talk about that type of person now because it's actually very relevant to this part of the discussion. So a lot of people, they tell me, hey, I usually don't eat breakfast because I'm not hungry in the morning, or because I'm doing intermittent fasting, or I started doing intermittent fasting and as a result of that I'm not hungry in the morning, but I tend to eat too much at night, right? And I've talked about this a lot in other videos. The problem is when you don't eat all day, your metabolism slows down, you're not getting in enough protein synthesis throughout the day, which can also, potentially cause muscle loss to slow down your metabolism and prevent your body from having the amount of protein it needs for optimal function and optimal performance and recovery. And then on top of that, your body's kind of running on cortisol. It learns to run on cortisol, which is your stress hormone, all day long. And then at night, when you finally come home and you crash and you're no longer active doing stuff, your appetite kicks in, you get ravenously hungry, you have this high calorie food in front of you, you got all your kids' snacks in the pantry, you overeat and you get fat, right? That is a very common and relatable scenario. Maybe I should have said that at the beginning of this video because more people would have related. But one of the best solutions to that is getting some type of protein in the morning. I don't need you to eat a full meal. I just literally need you to eat a protein shake. Oops, sorry. It's getting a little, it's raining. So I'm sorry for the background noise too. It's construction workers. It's a whole chaotic thing. But so what I was saying is that even just getting a protein shake in the morning can help to start fixing your metabolism and controlling your appetite. Getting in a convenient protein-rich lunch can also be a total game changer. And the combination of those two things is going to help you to not overeat at night. And then having the right healthy foods meal prepped ahead of time or prepared by your wife if she cooks fresh every day and she's down to cook healthy food, to ensure that even if you do eat a lot at night, that you're not going to eat something unhealthy and overeat your calories. And the cool thing is, because we only did a protein shake in the morning, those carbs you would have had at breakfast time, you could potentially have them at night. So it ends up being similar to carb backloading, and then eventually as your metabolism speeds up and as you lose some weight, your leptin goes down, your hunger in the morning goes up, just from the combination of those two factors. And then you start eating a full breakfast in the morning. And then, eventually we can start to speed up your metabolism, especially if we're getting more carbs in the morning, we're lifting more, we're building more muscle. We might even up your carbs further while keeping the fats low. And that's a great way to build your metabolism up in conjunction with muscle building. And before you know it, now you go from being one of these slow metabolism people who can eat carbs the night before and still have them active in your system the next day, and you become somebody with a fast metabolism who your body burns through carbs within a very short time. And so it's kind of cool because you get to eat more, which can be helpful if you have a big appetite, because you can potentially lose weight and maintain weight even if you're eating 3,000 calories a day. And you're going to be able, if you get used to eating like nutrient-dense foods, you can eat a lot of good nutrient-dense foods and still get great results. So it really depends on the person's individual situation. Like some people might be like, hey, I don't want to do that. I just want to eat very little and I want to get best results. Okay, great. We can figure out a way to do that. We can find a good compromise. And other people are like, hey, I want to be able to eat a lot and still lose weight and maintain my weight loss. So great, that can easily be achieved over the course of the long term. Some people are like, hey, I don't eat that much, but I want to lose weight. Some people are like, hey, I eat too much and that's why I can't lose weight. So again, you see how there's many different people. So low carb is a tool, high carb is a tool. The only universal I would say is high protein. Literally the only type of person who I don't have doing, high protein is somebody who has, kidney disease. And I've only had one client who had bad enough kidney disease that we had to limit her protein intake. It was actually a woman, 63 years old, still lost 30 pounds in 9 months, which is amazing. Mashallah, Allahumma barak. And she was only 160 to begin with. So she got down to 130, got really lean and like really healthy, mashallah. But she had, chronic kidney disease. So her doctor said, hey, no more than 100 grams of protein a day. Now I do have a client who has some degree of impaired kidney function, but alhamdulillah with him, his doctor was cool with him doing 160 grams of protein, which is what he needed at his body weight. I think it was 160 or 180. And so alhamdulillah, and there's people out there who only have one kidney who are still able to eat 200 plus grams of protein a day and take creatine and not get any kidney problems. Like for instance, one professional bodybuilder named Kurt Havens was born with one kidney. He's been taking creatine since 1996. And, so over 20 years, almost 30 years. And eating over 200 grams of protein a day for literally the last almost 30 years with one kidney. He was born with one kidney and he still survived. So, people are afraid of high protein. And of course, high protein will be reflected in your blood work and your urine samples. So you are going to see higher BUN and, you're going to see higher urea in your urine. These are just byproducts of, eating high protein, but that doesn't mean that you have impaired kidney function or that you're messed up. So anyways, not to go on too much of a tangent with that, but low carb. Low carb is a great tool for controlling appetite at sahur, for people with big appetites, etc. Whether we do a full low carb day, usually that's not necessary and can be counterproductive because it kills your energy levels, because it is good to have some carbs in your system for energy, performance, and recovery, and mood, and everything, muscular fullness, optimal brain function. But so that's why I usually prefer the carb backloading as opposed to full on low carb. But there are a handful of clients, literally a handful, I could count them on one hand, who did well on low carb at some stage. But even of those 5, 2 of them, I got them their initial results with low fat before we switched to a higher fat strategy, possibly because their body fat got low enough that they kind of needed more of those added fats into their diet because they didn't have a whole lot of body fat to pull from anymore, right? So it's a very interesting discussion. I have a whole story on how I discovered this stuff with my own experience with keto. The first time I did it like 13 years ago in Ramadan. After 2 Ramadans, my first 2 Ramadans lifting, I've been lifting for 15, almost 16 years now. Alhamdulillah, mashallah, Allahumma barak. And those first 2 Ramadans, I saw bad results. The third Ramadan on keto, I saw mixed results. I lost a bunch of fat, but I also lost a bunch of muscle. And then I found a good balanced protocol. But anyways, it's raining and I've already conveyed the idea I want to convey in this video. So I hope you benefited. If you have questions, let me know in the comments. Happy to go deep into the intricacies. I know that low carb diets can be very life-changing for a lot of people, especially people with a big appetite or people who get inflammation easily from carbs. That's another, use case. And even for myself, I use carb cycling. So I have some low carb days where I drop bloating, especially if I'm starting to get bloated from just eating so much carbs. And also just to increase my insulin sensitivity. Also for people who have epileptic seizures, keto works really well. And for diabetics, being in a calorie deficit and losing weight and lifting weights will improve your A1C by as little as 0.5 to 1% and as much as 1 to 2% over the course of 3 to 6 months, based on not only scientific studies, but also my anecdotal experience working with many clients who had diabetes or pre-diabetes. But studies have also said that using some low carb protocols can, up to triple the speed of that, which is great. And I have had, a pre-diabetic client who I did carb backloading and a little bit of carb cycling for, and he got good results from that as far as both weight loss and of course his A1C. But again, different use cases for different people. It's a tool. So if you see a low carb video online, you're like, oh, I'm going to go low carb now. Yeah, try it out, see how you do, right? If you see a video, low fat, high carb, you see now they have this thing called the sugar diet. I haven't tried the sugar diet yet, and I'm kind of scared to try that, but I could see why it might work. But I'd rather just stick with my normal, moderate, complex carbs, lean proteins, lower fat diet, do a lower carb, higher fat day once in a while, use my carb cycling protocol. That's what works well for me, both on a lifestyle level and on a results level and on a how I feel level. So I don't feel the need to do sugar diet or go back to keto, which I did many years ago, a couple times, and all this other stuff. Sustainability is the name of the game. It needs to be effective, but it also needs to be sustainable and enjoyable. And that's why I like my normal protocol and why my clients like it and why it works best for 95% of Muslims. And for that 3 to 5% who it doesn't work optimally for, we can always mix in a bit of low carb and all those other potential tools in the toolbox. There's no one size fits all diet. Every diet is a tool depending on the person. And so you want to have as many tools in the toolbox as possible to use at the appropriate moment. 95% of the time, it's the normal M3 diet with the weekly cheat meal, and then complex carbs, lean proteins, and low fat, etc., fiber, everything I teach in my other videos. And if you want to learn more about that, I'll attach the full fat loss mini course here, and I'll attach another relevant video here. See you on the next video, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.